Someone is lying. Someone is hiding the truth. And after weeks of suspicion, accusations, and dangerous secrets, the walls are finally beginning to close in. Because one man is dead. One killer is still walking free. And now, as emotions explode across Weatherfield, a devastating confrontation could expose everything. But what if the person everyone suspects isn't the killer at all? And what if the real truth is even more shocking than anyone imagined? For weeks, Gary Windass has been carrying a burden. You can see it every time Theo Silverton's name is mentioned. Every nervous glance. Every awkward silence. Every desperate attempt to change the subject. Something is clearly haunting him. And the worst part? He's not the only one. Sarah Platt has been acting just as suspicious. The former couple have spent weeks exchanging secret conversations, defending each other, and behaving in a way that's raised alarm bells across the entire street. To Maria Connor, the explanation seems obvious. An affair. A betrayal. A secret romance hiding in plain sight. But what if that's exactly what Coronation Street wants everyone to believe? Because beneath the gossip and jealousy lies a much darker mystery. A murder mystery. And at the center of it all stands Theo Silverton. The abusive manipulator whose reign of fear left destruction wherever he went. When Theo's lifeless body was discovered after Carla and Lisa's wedding, nobody shed many tears. Instead, attention immediately turned to one terrifying question. Who killed him? The list of suspects was enormous. Todd had every reason to hate him. Summer had been pushed to breaking point. Danielle had suffered years of betrayal. George wanted to protect those he loved. Christina had her own motives. And then there was Gary. The man with a violent history. The man who openly confronted Theo. The man who smashed up Theo's van in a fit of rage. From the very beginning, Gary looked guilty. Too guilty. And that's exactly why some fans aren't buying it. Because in Soapland, the obvious answer is rarely the correct one. But that's only the beginning. As the investigation intensified, one detail continued to bother viewers. Sarah and Gary weren't acting like lovers. They were acting like people trapped inside a secret. A terrifying secret. One capable of destroying multiple lives. Even Todd started noticing. The more he watched them, the more convinced he became that something wasn't adding up. And Todd knows better than anyone how dangerous assumptions can be. After everything Theo put him through, Todd is emotionally shattered. The abuse. The manipulation. The gaslighting. The constant fear. Even after Theo's death, Todd can't escape the damage. Every new revelation drags him deeper into the nightmare. And now he finds himself asking the same question everyone else is asking. What are Sarah and Gary hiding? Meanwhile, another threat is rapidly emerging. Kit Green. The detective leading the investigation. The man who already believes Gary is guilty. And perhaps most dangerously of all, Sarah's boyfriend. Kit's personal feelings are becoming harder and harder to ignore. Every time he looks at Gary, suspicion burns in his eyes. Every conversation feels like an interrogation. Every interaction feels like a trap. And Gary knows it. The builder repeatedly insists there's no evidence linking him to Theo's death. But even as he argues his innocence, his behavior continues raising uncomfortable questions. Why does he seem so frightened? Why does Sarah keep protecting him? And why do both of them freeze whenever Theo's murder is discussed? Then things become even more complicated. Because Kit decides enough is enough. If answers aren't going to come voluntarily, he'll force them into the open. And that decision leads to one of the most explosive evenings Weatherfield has seen in years. A dinner party. At first glance it sounds harmless. Friends gathering. Food being served. Normal conversation. But from the very beginning, disaster is written all over it. Old grudges simmer beneath the surface. Suspicion hangs in the air. Nobody fully trusts anyone. And every guest seems to be hiding something. As tensions build, Kit keeps trying to isolate Gary. His comments become increasingly pointed. Increasingly personal. Increasingly dangerous. He's no longer simply investigating. He's hunting. And Gary knows it. But one person reaches breaking point before anyone else. Maria. For weeks she's watched her husband grow closer to Sarah. For weeks she's ignored the warning signs. For weeks she's tried convincing herself she was imagining things. Not anymore. What happens next leaves everyone stunned. As glasses are raised and polite smiles begin to fade, Maria drops a bombshell that detonates across the entire table. She accuses Gary and Sarah of having an affair. Silence. Disbelief. The room freezes. Suddenly nobody cares about dinner. Nobody cares about manners. Nobody cares about keeping secrets. Because the accusation changes everything. Or does it? That's where the real mystery begins. Because while everyone focuses on a possible affair, viewers have started developing a completely different theory. What if Gary and Sarah aren't lovers? What if they're accomplices? Not in murder. In protection. According to growing fan theories, neither Gary nor Sarah killed Theo. Instead, they may believe someone else did. Someone they're desperately trying to protect. And one name keeps appearing again and again. Todd. It's a theory that sounds impossible, yet somehow makes disturbing sense. Imagine discovering Theo injured. Imagine believing Todd finally snapped after months of abuse. Imagine assuming he'd killed the man who destroyed his life. Would you cover for him? Would you hide evidence? Would you stay silent? Some fans think that's exactly what happened. But then comes another twist. What if Todd isn't guilty either? What if Sarah and Gary are protecting the wrong person? What if they've spent weeks covering up a crime that never happened the way they think it did? Suddenly the mystery becomes far more dangerous. Because now it's not simply about finding a killer. It's about uncovering the truth hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding, panic and fear. And fear is everywhere. Todd is terrified. Gary is terrified. Sarah is terrified. Even Maria is beginning to realize she may have underestimated the situation entirely. Because every answer seems to create 3 new questions. Then another shocking development emerges. After the disastrous dinner party, Todd refuses to let things go. He's convinced Gary knows more than he's admitting. Convinced Sarah is protecting something. Convinced the truth is still being hidden. Desperate for answers, he confronts Sarah directly. And while she doesn't provide the confession he's hoping for, her reaction only deepens the mystery. The fear in her eyes says everything. She's carrying something. Something heavy. Something devastating. Something she desperately doesn't want revealed. But why? And who is she protecting? Meanwhile, Gary becomes increasingly frustrated. He insists Kid is blinded by jealousy. He insists there was no affair. He insists Sarah simply trust him. Yet even his own explanations feel incomplete. Because if there really is nothing to hide, why has he spent weeks behaving like a man waiting for disaster? However, another problem is already emerging. The emotional toll is becoming unbearable. Todd finally breaks down. The loneliness. The grief. The exhaustion. Everything crashes down around him. For so long he's been trying to stay strong. Trying to move forward. Trying to convince himself the nightmare is over. But Theo's shadow continues poisoning every corner of his life. And now, as the investigation reaches its climax, Todd fears the truth may destroy what little stability he has left. Yet perhaps the biggest clue arrives when nobody expects it. Because while everyone is focused on murder, affairs and accusations, tiny details from that fateful night continue surfacing. Fragments. Memories. Contradictions. Pieces of a puzzle that still refuses to fit together. Every new revelation challenges what viewers thought they knew. Every flashback exposes another layer of deception. Every conversation reveals another possible motive. And suddenly, the impossible starts to feel possible. Maybe Gary isn't guilty. Maybe Sarah isn't guilty. Maybe Todd isn't guilty. Maybe the person everyone overlooked has been hiding in plain sight all along. As the night of Theo's death is finally revisited piece by piece, long-buried secrets begin rising to the surface. The truth starts clawing its way out. But truth can be dangerous. Especially when people have spent months building lies around it. Relationships are hanging by a thread. Trust is evaporating. Friendships are collapsing. And as accusations fly in every direction, nobody knows who to believe anymore. One wrong move could destroy everything. One confession could change multiple lives forever. One hidden detail could expose the real killer. And perhaps that's why so many people are terrified. Because once the truth finally emerges, there may be no going back. The most shocking part. Even now, with the answers seemingly within reach, uncertainty remains. Because every suspect has a motive. Every suspect has secrets. And every suspect has something to lose. But if one thing is becoming clear, the story everyone believes may be completely wrong. The affair may be a misunderstanding. The evidence may be misleading. The accusations may be pointing in the wrong direction. And the person everyone is trying to protect may not even be the real killer. As Weatherfield hurtles toward the biggest revelation of the year, one terrifying question remains unanswered. When the final flashback plays, when the last secret is exposed, and when Theo Silverton's true killer is finally revealed, will the truth bring justice, or unleash a devastating chain reaction that destroys far more lives than Theo ever did? Because the closer everyone gets to the answer, the more dangerous the mystery becomes, and Weatherfield may never be the same again.